Well, hello there to you. Gosh, we're running a little bit late today. I've been hard at work up in the loft, building the Loft Railway. Let me just get comfortable here. And it's, well, you know how time gets away from you. And quite frankly, it did get away from me. So I started this morning. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and then had a lie until 6:30 because top thing to do is if you want to lie in, just set your alarm half an hour earlier. It's great. I've been doing it for the last 10 years, and actually it does make a huge difference. We got people in the chat room. That guy who would not share his name is saying hello a lot. Hello. And Train Spotting Southeast, hello to you too. Stefan Jones, I'm pretty good, thanks. And yourself? Paul Williams, hello to you too. And Friday the 13th fans, how are you? Remember me from last week? How could we forget? But yeah, so I've got wet hair because I've just come out of the shower. Just cleaning up after all of the work that I've been doing up in the loft. If you've been following my series of videos about the loft conversion, well, there'll be a new one of those along on Friday. And actually, I should get out of the way some admin. Now, I was asked about... somebody sent me a message actually through RM Web, and I feel a bit rude for not responding, but I need to do that. But essentially, it was about fireproofing. Worried about using wooden cladding on the dividing wall. Well, the insulation has been specifically picked to be flame retardant, and the dividing wall between us and next door has been insulated with a 1-inch thick layer of this flame retardant solid insulation. So it has two purposes. It's heat insulation, very good, brilliant, you'll really appreciate it in winter, but also it is a bit of fire protection. It's also the same stuff that's been used in the entire room, plus the Ecotherm, which is also fire retardant, and there's going to be a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher going up there as well, just for good measure. So rest assured, we're on top of bits and pieces like that. Let's have a look. Friday the 13th fans, last week you said you would take a look at my YouTube channel. Yes, I did actually. So let's have a look now. Remind me. Let's have a look. Friday the 13th fans. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, I did promise. So Friday the 13th fans. Let me have a look. Oh, you've picked a I got Friday the 13th network. You've let me just see. Can I? What is your YouTube channel called? Because when I do a search for Friday the 13th fans, excuse me, I got wood dust from cutting lots of wood. Friday the 13th fans, I'm not finding your YouTube channel. I'm getting an awful lot of stuff to do with Friday the 13th and scary videos and stuff. So I'm struggling to find your channel. If you could... I'm trying to know how else to find it. Friday the 13th fans. How else would I find it? I'm gonna have to have a think about that. I'm struggling to find. You have to select channel in the channel in the settings. Where? Oh dearie me. Channel. Come on. I'm struggling here a bit. A Friday the 13th network. Friday. Ha. Yes, found you. Okay. An awful lot of teaser trailers, Jason mask broke, defeat of Jason, shot with poison, then clubbed to death. There's let's have a look now. If I can, 3, no, 8. I presume this is your channel. So live Q&A with me, one of the cast. I presume you've done a short film or something. Let's have yeah. Oh, D87 Kelly. Yeah, we had the channel shout out request at the end of last week. Sorry, I've been all in a tiz in a rush. So there we are. That's Friday the 13th fans channel. I'm not going to play any of the videos because horror stuff is I know we've got some minors who tune into this, so I've got to be a little bit careful. But there you are. Go and take a look there if you into that kind of thing. But certainly, yeah, doing short films and stuff. I've done a few myself, and they're always good fun. So definitely, let's have a look. Oh, what's this? Ooh. We have a drink arriving, so that and a chocolate bar, which I can't eat whilst I'm talking because there are spraying bits of chocolate everywhere. Can I help you?
I just thought it might help your fans to have a breather while you shut up for a second.
Okay, right. Okay,
Bye.
let's have a look. Jason is back. Will he get... right. Yeah. So interesting. America lies in. Let's have a look. So it's certainly in terms of Amdram. Zoe and I have done a few sort of you know, our own films, low budget films. We did a horror one as well. The Lockit is one that we've done. But let's have a look. Who else was it? We had one other person who was the Philip Page. You see there. So we do Philip Page. Philip Page. Oh, there's 2 Philip Pages. Are we Philip Page with a single? Now, is this the Philip Page? Is this the Philip Page that we seek? So, all right. So we've got Llangollen Station and the Mighty River Dee. So Llangollen Railway is one, again, I've been there quite a few times and I know it quite well, and I'm still waiting for them to extend the other way, so behind the camera, so underneath the bridge. The bridge is there because the track sort of ends on the back wall of the bridge and then it's all filled in. But I think it's to Ruban, it'd be the main line connection. And really, I was hoping that when the old Daypole factory was demolished, that they would reserve part of the track bed to be able to put that line back in. And I've been told by somebody that no, they let trendy hipster apartments get built across the track bed when they had that golden opportunity. So that is something that's a bit of a disappointment if that is what's happened. Because I think the Llangollen would certainly benefit from getting its main line link back in. Right, the guy who would not share his name. I'll make this the last one for this week, so we can see that guy who would not share his name. Let's have a look. I believe this. Is this your channel? Train Talk, what's coming up on the channel? Leeds Station. Now interesting. Leeds Station is that Hello Hen, the real huggable panda. Oh yeah, you've been done over by autocorrect. It does that to me as well. Let's have a look. Leeds Station train spotting. Leeds Station, I've not been there for an awfully long time. So it's quite a large station, but with a lot of bay platforms from what I remember. And it's actually it's an interesting scissors crossover there. Still got the centre lines, and that's probably because there's not that many through platforms. So I presume that means that they can run things like freight trains through there. Let's have a look. Real huggable panda. Autocorrect noise the hell out of me. But how are you, Jen? I'm all right. Shattered, having been at work up in the loft for a long time today. But just give me a moment here. Let's go back to him and let's have a look. Where are we? Excuse me. So basically, I've been up in the loft doing all the framework for the baseboards of the train, and it is hard work. So yeah, anyway, yeah, meanwhile back at the ranch, got up at 6. Well, I set my alarm for 6 and 6:30 so I could have that half an hour lie in. It works wonders, actually. The one thing I hate is the alarm going off and then having to instantly jump out of bed. So having that second alarm half an hour later really does work out pretty well for me. But I overran my time. I lost track of time and then realised I had like 20 minutes to get down from the loft, get cleaned up, get a shower because I'm filthy, covered in muck and that, and to get back in here. But no, the loft has been going really well. There's actually, funnily enough, the real huggable panda, there's not much in the way of spiders up there. For some reason, spiders don't seem to like it up there. So have a look. Friday the 13th fans, do you like horror, Jen? Because my channel is based around it, if you didn't guess. Yeah, I've written sci-fi horror, so, you know, like the Aliens type genre. And 2 of my books, in fact my most successful published books, did really well. I did about 18 months on the book signing trail, doing conventions and also Waterstones. I've done pretty much every branch of Waterstones in the country. Did exceptionally well. That's sci-fi horror, so it's like basically a ghost story set in space in the future. But so yeah, I dabble in the horror. Yeah, Friday the 13th fans, that explains the wet hair. Yeah, straight out of the shower, no time to dry my hair. So I'm wearing my gym jams underneath the jumper as well. So I am decent, but yeah, and I ache all over. But anyway, yeah, 6:30, got out of bed. By 7:30, I was down at the Woodyard for when it opened. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll have seen the photograph that I tweeted of the IKEA flat pack of the model railway baseboards. All actually did fit into the old Volvo very well. And Warrington train spotted 2778. Oh, actually, I think you did ask last time. Let's have a I'm not averse to modern. Let's have a look. Modern stuff. Train spot. What's the 2778? 27. I'll make this the very last one because I do need to crack on. So yeah, I found your channel here. So hold on one moment. So I take it this is you, and let's have a look. Transport. Oh, Loughborough, Warrington. Yeah, Warrington's actually another interesting place. It has to be said. Oh, is that the... Which one's they? With the pantograph set. Went through a bit quick. Are they... They're not 68s, are they? Or are they 70s? What class... Oh, they're 90s. I'm not sure, actually. But yeah, well, oh yeah, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Class 8... Oh, there is a Class 88. Ah, right. So is the 88 the electric version of the 68, then I take it? I didn't realise there was a Class 88. I've kind of lost touch with the more modern stuff. I'm obviously aware of 66s and 67s and that. But yeah, anyway, where were we? Meanwhile, back at the ranch. So I got to the Woodyard, 7:30, ordered up a huge amount of wood, absolutely huge amount. There's 7 sheets of 8 before. Let's have a look. Friday the 13th fans. Please read my last comment. Oh, okay. Do you prefer A1 or A3? A1. I have to say, A3 for me feels a little bit tainted. I've always found the Flying Scotsman, which I believe is an A3, massively over-commercialised, and it's a bit like the way Mallard is irritating as an A4. Not because it's an irritating loco per se, but because whenever the uninitiated see an A4, they go, oh look, it's a Mallard, and it's actually, no, there's actually quite a few others. And the Flying Scotsman just never really tickled my fancy, but the A1, I followed the Tornado new build process from the very beginning, and an artist friend of mine, John Wigston, for many years was selling prints of one of his 3 signature paintings, which was Return of an A1. I can't even remember whether it may even have been being sold to help raise money for the actual the rebuild for the new build of the Tornado. Oscar Wilder, Scotsman has been an A1, A10 and A3. Oh, I didn't know that actually. I didn't know that it had changed classes. Angus's Trains, hi to you. Good to have you back. Let's have a look. Leslie Gilpin, following your flat pack baseboard idea, and got an 8x4 cut into components for a pair of 18-inch by 4-foot baseboard tables just to build them. Boom. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. When I built Grove Street Yard, and it's something, I think it's in the videos about the building of Grove Street Yard. If you check it out on my channel, there's a playlist of all the videos of building the small shunting layout. And if you kind of draw up on an A4 sheet how the bits fit together, you can very efficiently use an 8x4 sheet by tessellating. Good word that, write it down. Needs to be used more often in everyday conversation, but excuse me, tessellate all these bits together, and the wood yards can get a much better cut than you can at home, because they've got a proper industrial circular saw, and it's like zoom, straight through, and you have your IKEA flat pack. And I built the baseboards for Grove Street Yard in the space of a day and a half, something like that. Warrington Train Spotted 2778. Did you not bother with Glasgow Model Railway exhibition this year? No, too far, I'm afraid, too far. Although my friend Alex Croft, he was up there with his layout, which was an O-gauge layout. So if you went to the Glasgow show and you were wondering why one of the O-gauge layouts, something like Happispur or something like that, it's Norway Jerk Testicle. I presume your autocorrect has just screwed you over there, but yeah, I didn't bother with the Glasgow show because it's just too far. But he was there, so if you're wondering why there was an O-gauge layout that had some open wagons with Tunnocks dark chocolate wafer bars, is a bit of an in-joke between a bunch of us who've been actually who did Biggest Little Railway. We kind of did that fed on Tunnocks wafer bars, so they crop up wherever we are at exhibitions. It's sort of a bit of an in-joke between us all. Philip Page, that's my link to a Class 88 in Wigan. Oh, great, you've sent me a link. Brilliant. I'll have a look at that later. I need to move on with the topic for today. Let's have a look. Friday the 13th fans, are you interested to hear that they're rebuilding P2 number 2007 Prince of Wales? Yeah, the P2, the 282 Mikado. I'm not entirely sure. Cock of the North is this sort of the famous one. Hornby produced a model of that, and a quite nice model actually. I must get one. It sort of looks like a stretched A4 in some respects. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. It's a logical progression after they built Tornado, but certainly I think it will be something that's quite a long project, but it'll be good when it's done. So have a look. Mark Rice, hi Jen, please can you help? I have a lot of wagons and if I don't weight them down, they derail track. Okay, is it the wheels or flanges too small? I can't run them more than 6 or 7 at a time. That sounds to me like your wheel back-to-back gauge is out. And what that is where the wheels on the chassis are too far apart. So you end up, they're tight between the rails. There's no lateral movement. But you can get a wheel back-to-back gauge and you kind of push the wheels back in a little bit. Conversely, if they're too close together, then you can end up with the wagons will actually slip between the track and will tend to impact some of the check rails. So that sounds to me, excuse me, what your problem might be. Hi to you, Digger Evans. Good to have you along. Train Sporting Southeast. Got Huntley Palmer's Peckett brand new for 50 squids for my new industrial layout. Hey, that is actually a really good price. I'm just curious, where did you find that? So what's that? Wolfie Wolf. I am an idiot. I just tried. Oh, right. Yes. Of course. Right. Yeah. This was a video that I'd brought up to. We're gonna. The idea was I was going to talk a little bit about DCC fitting. So actually, what I'll do is to avoid that being a little bit of an issue, I'll just hide that. Let's have a look. Right. Yeah, Huntley Palmer's Peckett, brand new for 50 quid. That is really good. Oh, Bluebell Railway Model Shop. Why were they selling it so cheap? Because surely, I mean, the second-hand market, they're commanding quite a high resale price. And if it's brand new, the RRP would have been, I'm trying to remember what I think it was about £79, discounted to about 70. So that really is a cheap price. I'm surprised that they had one left. Oh, you say it's the last one. But yeah, I think you scored there on that because those are very desirable. Let's have a look. Angus's Trains. Do you have a cube camera? Looking at buying one. I don't have one, but one of the things that I want to do up in the loft layout is to actually add cameras peppered around the layout so I can get different feeds from different static cameras sort of embedded within the model, so to speak. Been having a look at what's available, but I haven't bought anything as yet. The idea is going to be, excuse me, in the future when I'm able to do live streams from upstairs with the layout running, I'll be able to bring up the actual different cameras on the screen and sort of flick between them, and it's just a little added dimension. Let's have a look. D827 Kelly, DCC is definitely the way forward for me. My SLW24's arrived. Now I need to test the sound on them. Interesting. I'd be interested to hear your opinions on how they compare to the Bachmann Class 24. Because I'm actually quite happy with the Bachmann Class 24, it has to be said. And given the amount of money that is just hemorrhaging out of my bank account at the moment to build this layout up in the loft, I've got to be careful. I can't really afford to be buying locomotives willy-nilly. But certainly Digger Evans still on DC analog. Don't worry about it. DC is still equally as good. It's just I've taken the dirty shilling and gone DCC. But you know, for many years I was quite happy on DC. Let's have a look. Real Huggable Pando, a cube camera. Yeah, really small camera. I'm not sure what the resolution is from them though. Stephen Jones, able to fit on an 00 gauge flatbed wagons. Now interesting, we use a Panasonic. I'm just seeing if it's actually in here. Yeah, here we are. It looks a bit weird because it's got a wind muff on. But if you take this sort of furry hat off and take the stand off, what you've got there is like a little bullet, and it's a full HD wide angle lens camera, and that's what I use to send around the railway in the shed to get all the shots of the trains running. Let's have a look. Warrington Train Spotter 2778. Back to the topic. I like DCC because it makes the trains look good on your layout, but it's expensive, makes the locomotive expensive. Well, yeah. A good sound setup can double, if not more than double, the cost of a locomotive. No way, Jerk, Jenny, it costs nothing to make the train sounds yourself. Yeah, to some extent. I did actually have my parents brought back from when they did the Rocky Mountain Express, you know, sort of coast to coast through Canada. and it's like a wooden thing that when you blow into it, it sounds like an American style train whistle. So yeah, you could do that, I suppose. As a kid, I always used to do that. It's how my model railway used to get its sound effects. See, David Train Time. Hi to you too. Brilliant. Ron Stanbridge, have cams on my garden railway, can see all the layout from there. Around about £20 from Amazon, full HD 780p. Yeah, they're a great idea, and certainly with a huge layout like I've got up in the loft. My thoughts are that because I'm building a lower level that's just going to be storage sidings. It's probably useful to have a camera down there as well, just to keep track of what's in the storage sidings. Oh, today's drink, by the way, because I'm just so dehydrated, I've been sweating an awful lot. I've drunk about 3 litres of water whilst doing all this work. So tonight's Shed Chat Live is brought to you by Diet Cola. Other colas are available. Angus's trains, some cube cameras have 1080p. Yeah, I'll be honest, if you're buying new, what I would suggest, I've just realised that I haven't got the big light on, so just give me one moment. Does that really make any difference? Oh God, it's the equivalent of, well, it's an energy saving bulb, but it uses 135 watts, which is a lot. But as an energy saving bulb, I think it's the equivalent of a 1 kilowatt bulb or something, which is what we got in the lighting rig. But yeah, 1080p. The higher the res you can get, the better. 720p is it can be a little bit grainy, but 1080p you get a much higher quality. So if you can get those or higher, if you can get them for the right price, go 4K. It's certainly a good idea. The Real Huggable Panda, how much did that the camera cost? That particular one was on sale through Amazon at the time. I think it was about £70 or £80. It's really good. It's waterproof too. We take it mountain climbing. We take it sailing because it's waterproof. So we've nicknamed it the Action Cam. So a lot of the interesting shots that you see in my videos, and Zoe uses it an awful lot on her channel too, is done through that camera. Digger Evans, you been in the loft today? Yep, that's why I'm absolutely shattered and why I've got wet hair, because I lost track of time and had to rush at the end to get cleaned up and have a shower so I could be here. I think I was about 5 minutes late, but it's not a problem. But I made great progress up there. There is a new progress video going up on Friday, and that does seem to be the pattern now. The Friday videos will tend to be progress updates from the loft, and I'm impressed myself actually, just how much is going on up there. I mean, I'm laying baseboards already, so it's brilliant. So we've got Warrington Train Spotter 2778 has a loft layout coming on. You got started at laying any track. I've started putting some track down to test fit, but it's not secured. The problem I've got is it's all reclaimed track, reclaimed from the old garden railway. And in all honesty, I'd probably rather not use it. It's filthy with the bitumen paint and stuff, and I need to trim all the ends because I just cut the fish plates, which were soldered on. A lot of them were soldered on, and it's made a right mess. So I need to trim them back by about ½ an inch to get back to good track. But they're a bit distorted, and in all honesty it'd be easier to lay new track, but that's going to cost a fortune. Let's have a look. Alec Ralph, good evening Jenny, better late than never. Yeah, don't worry, all welcome anytime. And of course this goes up on YouTube and you can come back and watch it as many times as you like, whenever you like. Ian Haynes, I did the Rocky Mountaineer trip and have a model of the engine, DCC, and all less than £100. Yeah, I must admit, a lot of the American outline stuff in particular, and I'm guessing that Canada uses a lot of the similar type locomotives and stock, because share a land border, so the stuff goes walkies over the border, and the manufacturers will sell both sides of the borders. So yeah, the cost of models in America and Canada is actually quite keen compared to what we've got here. Let's have a look. Train sporting southeast. Myself stick with DC. Keep your track clean and loco wheels clean. Works like a dream. Yeah, I've had years and years of great DC experience, but it's actually the DCC sound that sold me. Plain DCC control didn't really tickle my fancy. I just felt it was pointless. You were basically swapping one control system for another, and I didn't feel that ordinary DCC without sound gave enough extra to justify the cost. But when the sound chips started coming through at a reasonable price, that for me was when I jumped into the market. Angus's Trains, the cube cam was $6 US with free post 1080p in red, blue, black. Wow, six Aussie dollars. I'm not sure at the exchange rate, but that's, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be more than £6 or so. I wouldn't have thought. So that's actually very, very cheap. That's a really good price. And now, if you can link them together and get a feed off the camera into a computer in such a way that you can record it and make use of it, then that is an amazing price. 47010HA, DCC is the way to go. If you look around, you can get some bargains. Also, Stay Alive decoders are great. Yeah, excuse me, so I got a little bit of dead skin on my lip there. I've used some of the DCC concepts and the Zen decoders with the Stay Alive capacitors, and yeah, they are really good. I keep meaning to work out how to just get bulk buy electrolytic capacitors and solder them on myself, so it'd be a lot cheaper than buying the ready-made Stay Alives. As far as I'm aware, I think that they'd need to be soldered between the feed from the track and the chip, if that makes sense. So effectively they're on the input. But somebody's probably going to tell me, no, you wire them in series with the chip. But it's something I'm going to have to look into. Let's have a look. Digger Evans, Lego Man Biffo does some really good sounds. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things said about him. So very, very good. A friend of mine said as well, saw him at a show, and he just did the things there and then. Let's have a look. Yeah, Kelly, looking forward to a bit of film actually to see the SLW 24s. Angus's Trains, you can link it to the computer. It's interesting. I'm going to have to look for those. They might be just the thing that I need as well. Alec Ralph, is it your intention to use the latest electronic devices such as linked signals, etc.? Now, this is an area where I know that at DCC you can get controllers that control the points, control the signals. And I'll be honest with you, I'm staying DC for the points and signals. And the reason for this is because I just like having lots of physical switches and I can pretend I'm in a signal box. And it works fine for me. Just use it on 16 volts AC with a capacitor discharge unit. And it works wonders for me. And the signals, I'm going to go colour light signals on this layout. And I'm going to use micro switches on the point motors to change the signals. So I won't actually even need switches that I flick for the signals. They will effectively be interlocked with the track. So that's how I plan to do that. Let's have a look. Just having a look down the comments. Train sporting southeast, myself off to Yorkshire in Easter. Places visiting National Railway Museum and North Yorkshire Railway, East Lancs and other heritage railways. Yeah, there's a lot out there. I mean, North Yorkshire Moors, that's a great line. There's also, if you go further north, there's the Wensleydale Railway, the Weardale Railway. You've also got the National Railway Museum's outreach at Shildon. That's actually a really good place to go to as well. Going even further north, there's the Bowes Railway and Tanfield Railway. What else have we got round there? I'm just trying to think. Is there something in Hartlepool as well? I'm not sure about that. But certainly there's a lot going on. In terms of model shops as well, Monk's Bar models in York, if that's still there. There's a shop in Harrogate, I can't remember what it's called. 53A models in Hull, if you get that far south. There's also Durham Trains of Stanley, in Stanley of all places. Really good shop. The owner of that's actually a former truck driver, retired truck driver. So he's always really interested. If you rock up in a truck, he always comes and has a poke about. Going, oh, what you driving? What you driving? D827 Kelly. My accessories will be DC using the Merg C-bus system. 2 wires to every module and 12-volt power to each of them, and no reams of wires to a control panel other than the C-bus wiring. Yeah, I don't mind having reams and reams of wiring, to be honest. The way I get round that is I have different control panels for different sections of the layout to minimise the wiring. So I will have probably 3 or even 4 control panels with switches for points, which will also interlock with the signals. And they will be in different places around the room, and that's how I'll do it. I mean, you've got your common return off all of the accessories. That's easy enough to wire in, just 1 wire daisy chained around everything. So, you know, yeah, you end up with big sort of like thick cables of smaller wires all nestled together. I just use cable ties to tidy that up. So yeah. Ron Stanbridge, I'm using Train Tech signals, but they do cost around £40 for a 3 aspect. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Burco signals. But that's possibly mostly because I know Alex Croft, who owns the company, very well. So he extols their virtues. I've seen his stand every time I bump into him. So I'll probably be supporting him with that. I'll see what sort of stuff I need. But given that I'm building a model of Tiny Yard, I'm not really going to need a huge number of signals, funnily enough. Probably ground signals more than anything else. Yeah, D827 Kelly, completely agree with you. There are many ways of doing things, none are wrong. Totally agree with you on that. Warrington Train Spotter 2778. Whether you're building a model railway up in your loft, does that mean your model railway in the shed will be taken apart, or are you planning on keeping it going? Right, my plan is, at the moment, that the layout in the shed, I will try and keep that intact until I've got a running layout up in the loft. So basically so I can run trains. It won't be finished, but so I can run trains, and then what I need to do is I will be breaking it apart, and I will be effectively recycling all of the stuff on it. I want all the point motors off it, track, point work, stuff like that. Some of the baseboards may get reused as is. Certainly the Bolton East Junction with the signal box and everything, that may actually become part of the hidden fiddle yard. Although I've got to think of what I need to, what to do about the scissors crossing, because they seem to not get on very well with DCC running. Let's have a look. 47010 HA Oaks in Oldbury selling off some Bachman Sound Locos, 75 quid bargains. Yeah, Oaks in Oldbury is a shop I've never been to, but I would love it to be closer, because they have these sort of bargain sales, but they're only for walk-in customers. You cannot ring them up and get any of them. You cannot get them mail order, cannot get them off the website. It is purely for in-person callers. Let's have a look. Alec Ralph, is it possible to use the shed in conjunction with the garden layout? No, the O-gauge garden layout is self-contained from the shed. It doesn't go into the shed. And I don't want to really keep anything of value out there because of security issues more than anything else. So the shed will become a potting shed. It'll just be used for storing bits and pieces, excuse me, to do with the Volvo and car repairs, that kind of thing. And with the baseboards removed, it will give me an awful lot more space. The plan is that I can then do things like I can respray body panels in there. in such a way that, you know, you're not worrying too much about the weather. You can keep it a dust-free environment, and that's the way that the shed's going to go. Essentially, once I've got a massive mega layout in the loft, I can't see myself ever going out to the shed to play trains. It would be a waste of the layout. So it's just all going to get recycled, which, yeah, is a shame in some ways, but it's done 7 years now, 7, or is it 8 years? I lose track of how long it's been. I've certainly got a good innings out of it, and I've not really had any problems either. And I'm probably even down to recycling the wire underneath. There's a lot of wire underneath that layout, and I think that I'm going to need quite a lot. Let's have a look. D827 Kelly, I hope one day that I'll have access to a loft for a layout. Oh, to have the house my uncle had in Southport. 2 lofts, 3 basements and 3 floors. Old Victorian type houses with upstairs, downstairs. Oh yes, with the servants' quarters and the kitchen down in the basement. Yeah, if you can get yourself a house like that, and you never need to move again. Certainly we've been quite lucky here, especially in finding that the loft was very usable and nobody had converted it into anything else. Train sporting southeast, what's the layout plan on new loft layout? Essentially Tyne Yard, but obviously compressed and folded back on itself into a big U shape just to fit the space. But if you've ever seen Tyne Yard in the 1970s, that is going to be the basis for what I'm going to build up there, with a little bit of artistic license. Alec Ralph, off to work on the layout now. Take care and all the best. Well, look, you have yourself a good session. Certainly, don't wear yourself out. I think I've done that a little bit today. I've got another day tomorrow where I'm going to crack on in the loft, and then Wednesday or Thursday, I'm due to go to Shrewsbury to meet up with Derry to pick up a whole load of the points and point motors that he's been sourcing on the cheap for me. So it's all go, 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 isn't it? Let's have a look now. D827 Kelly, workbench might be better use of the shed with tool space, but obviously tools kept in more secure location. Yeah, I don't keep electric power tools out there at all. And certainly a lot of other tools are slowly gravitating up into the loft. But certainly, you know, things like pickaxes, spades, garden hose. Yeah, ho ho ho. Might have 3 hoes, but he ain't no Santa. Yeah, I've not really decided. It's a good shed. It's a good sized shed. So it will get used. It's not going to get demolished. But as to what it's going to get used for, not really put too much thought about it. 47010HA, loft gets so hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. That's why I've insulated mine. It doesn't do that. Angus's trains. Bye, Jenny. Thanks. Take care. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you too, and you have yourself a good day. And don't forget that you can also watch any of this live stream that you missed. You can catch up with it at a later date, whenever's convenient for you. It should persist on YouTube. Let's have a look. Aiden0206, hello everyone. Hello to you. Good to have you along. Always good to welcome people. Scottish NS Rail fan. No, I didn't get to the Glasgow show. We were talking about that a bit earlier on. Just too far, it has to be said. Far too far. I don't get to many shows. I will be at Alexandra Palace. But aside from that, just time is against me more than anything else. Train Sporting Southeast, my loft layout has been ripped out. Loft redone and baseboard's been put in now. Ah, right, redevelopment. Sometimes it's good to redevelop. I know that in building the layout out in the shed, one of the things that I came up against is you build it and then you think there was different ways you could have built it to be better, but you kind of lumbered with it. So a redevelopment sort of helps you with that. Let's have a look. I'm just having a look. D827 Kelly, I'm building a small part of South Shields currently. Not a place I'm familiar with. Certainly not the railway side of things. Let's have a look. D827 Kelly, hopefully in a couple of years I'll have a bigger house now. Other half is retrained as a plumber. Oh yes, actually. A lot of money in plumbing. So yeah, definitely. And when you buy a house, always look at it in terms of the potential. And so if you're like me and you like doing DIY, you're not afraid to take on stuff yourself. What you don't want is a house where somebody has made it exactly how they want it. They've done all the mods that they wanted, and essentially left you no opportunity to do anything yourself and personalise it and do it how you want it. Also, the other thing as well is take a lot of view on how you can extend it, should you want to extend it. Things like that. So when Zoe and I came and looked around this house, it was nothing special. It looked like really down at heel, overgrown gardens. But what we saw was the potential to do things. And we have realised a lot of that potential. And that's really the big secret. DH7 Kelly, probably be at Ali Pally on the Sunday. Well, I'll see you there. Do look out for me. I'm being interviewed on the MRC stand. They do these sort of one-on-one interviews. They've got a lineup of people. There's probably a list on the website or something of the people that they're doing. But I am getting interviewed. I've been asked about that. So that should be fun. But anyway, yes, meanwhile, back at the ranch, I wanted to talk today a little bit about DCC fitting and particularly stuff like sound. So on the screen, if I can just get this bad boy going, what you see here, this is actually the Star class, and it's fairly typical of the newer Hornby tender locomotives, excuse me, in that they're actually fitted to accept a TTS chip. Whether or not Hornby currently do a TTS chip to fit them, and I've seen a few people poo-poo the TTS chips, and in all honesty with you, so far I've had some very good experience with them. Let me just get myself comfortable. I'm afraid my knees are aching like anything, and this is just down to working hard in the loft. But yeah, the TTS chip I find a relatively inexpensive way of getting pretty reasonable, in most cases, sound into locomotives. And as you'll see in this video, it's actually once Muggins here. Look, you get off the screen, you. I was gonna like do bunny ears, but then I realised you guys can't see me do that. So any second now, essentially. They're just a drop-in fit with the TTS chip. It's the same for a lot of locomotives, but also look out for the fact that DCC fitting some of the Bachmann locomotives is pretty easy to do with the Hornby TTS chips. So it's well worth considering doing that, because for about 35 to £40, the TTS chips are, like a third of what you'd pay for a Zemo or a Lock Sound. And actually I found that by and large, the ones that I've had, the sound's been really good. So like the Class 20 in particular, I don't know why you'd buy a full price Class 20 chip, because they're really, really good. The 37 I didn't think was as good as one of the more expensive ones that, let's just... You can just about hear the chuffing there. Actually, you probably that may actually echo when I do that, because you'll hear the sound. There's a delay built in, and the microphone will be picking it back up. So, but sound is what swayed me to the DCC dark side, and as I was saying before, that. It's also D827 Kelly, Mark, second series. Mark. Let's have a look. Mark Rice. Hi, Jen. Are they, or do you think they make Little Railway again, or Model Railway Challenge? Yeah. Great Model Railway Challenge Series 2 has been greenlit. That is going ahead. Watch this space. I can't actually talk too much about it, so. That probably will give you a little hint about my involvement. So I really can't talk at any great length anymore about Great Model Railway Challenge. Watch this space. There is a Series 2. In terms of Biggest Little Railway, officially there is no Series 2. However, I am aware of something in the works that may or may not end up being filmed for television. It's certainly going ahead, but as to whether Love Productions would be interested in filming it as a kind of loose follow-up to Biggest Little Railway, that remains to be seen. I know that negotiations are going on in the background. Roundhouse are involved, and the Silver Lady Locomotive, is involved in this project, and it involves going after a different Guinness World Record. Not the longest railway, but something else, and Silver Lady's going to be used for this. And this should be happening in June this year, but whether or not it's filmed and becomes a TV programme, I really couldn't say. I have no idea what's going on, but that's where those are up to. Programme about Hornby next month, Philip Page. Yes, I knew about this, and I haven't been at liberty to talk much at length, but if that's now at a point where it's going to be announced, that has been filmed by Plum Productions, and a guy that I've done work with at Plum Productions is the producer, and I was aware that this was kind of loosely going on in the background because it was being done in parallel to some of the programme development that's been going on. Whether or not any of that sees the light of day, I don't know, but I was aware of the Hornby programme. Plum Productions have done, what have they done? It's like James May, Man Lab, things like that. And they also did the James May attempt at the Bideford, was it Barnstaple to Bideford, relaying that, but with Hornby 00, as in Hornby 00 gauge, not Hornby 00, obviously, because that's you need an awful lot of 3-rail track for that. So it's being done by the same production company, and it's a Philip Page. James May is presenting it. Yeah, James May is one of their go-to presenters. Andrew Keeley, sorry I'm late. DCC only if you intend to use a lot of loco, lighting, sound and multiple unit ops. Otherwise, no. My opinion on DCC is pretty much sound was the clincher for me. DCC only, I didn't feel had the unique selling point to justify the cost over DC. But as soon as the sound turned up, there and became affordable, and I have to credit Hornby with the TTS chips as really being the where it's that's what swayed it for me. So if I sound distracted, it's because I'm trying to find something and talk to you guys at the same time. I used to be good at this when I worked in radio. You could be doing one thing whilst talking about another. But let's have a look. I'm just looking for another DCC fitting video that I've done. I tend to tag them. Yeah, here we are. I tend to tag them onto the box opening and reviews. But certainly TTS sound is what's swung it for me. Let me just... Yeah. But you can fit the TTS into a locomotive that it isn't intended for in terms of sound or anything. So one of the things that I'm going to show you, if you haven't already seen this before, this is the a sound fitting. I put TTS sound into a Hornby Schools, and it's getting on a bit. It is a full super detail loco drive with an 8-pin decoder socket actually in the tender. But as far as I'm aware, there are no Hornby TTS Schools class decoders. They may come in the future, but I'm just trying to see. Yeah, S15 class is what I chose for this. And essentially, for me, I go off the whistles and the number of cylinders. And if you get a reasonable match between those, then you're grand. Leslie Gilpin, off to watch Monday night quizzes. Oh, well, good for you, and it's been good to have you along. Don't forget to join us again next week at 7 o'clock GMT, but also you can catch up with anything that you miss on YouTube at a time to suit you. the videos stay up there as an ordinary video. But to go back to the TTS, the S15 class, the way I looked at this was that it's the whistle. The whistle is the signature for a lot of locomotives. And the S15 class is a Southern Railway locomotive, as is this. So to be honest, I figured that they're probably a reasonably good shoe-in. There's probably people who listen to it and go, oh, that sounds nothing like it. But to me, this actually was a pretty simple conversion. And the actual sound quality is really, really good. D827 Kelly, the beat is the key, really. Yeah, and a lot of it's down to number of cylinders. So I think the S15 class has the same number of cylinders as the schools class, from what I remember. And certainly being a Southern locomotive, I figured it'd probably have about the right sort of sounding whistle. So I went with this, and I was quite pleased with the result. Fat Wallop Boy 2, superb lighting functions such as cab, headlight, tail and engine room lights was enough to sway me back to modelling in DCC. Sound was a bonus, though it can begin to irritate like Class 20s. Actually, the Class 20, I was quite pleased. The TTS Class 20 decoder, I put that into a Bachmann Class 20, and I was very, very pleased with the end result. I've also fitted one of the older 8-pin Bachmann Bachmann chassis Class 20s with a TTS sound chip, but I had to replace the speaker on that because space was very much more at a premium. But yeah, I agree with you. On some of the diesel locomotives, the actual light functions as well are pretty good. You don't tend to get that with the steam locomotives. I know Dapol have introduced Firebox Flicker. It's a little bit of a gimmick, but it's there. They're doing it because they can do it. You can turn it off on DCC. It's not a problem. But by and large, steam locomotives don't really have lights of any sort that come ready wired up to use. You can wire your own in, and that's another area that DCC gives you an opportunity. And one of my friends, Melanie, who I think she may have appeared, yeah, she's appeared on one of the Grove Street Yard running at exhibition videos, because she was my my co-pilot for an exhibition or two with that. But she's DCC sound fitting a Class 142 Pacer, and I think it's like 4 different lighting functions she's wiring into it. So, you know, there's a lot of options to kind of customize locomotives over and above what you could have done with DC. And that, I suppose, is another aspect of DCC that for me is not a deal breaker, but it's a nice added bonus. The sound for me was the deal breaker, because on DC you can do things like double and even triple heading locomotives. You can, as long as they're reasonably speed matched, it just works. But yeah, DH7 Kelly, British locomotives didn't really have lights like foreign ones. They could have, well, you'd have like lamps. So you'd have lamps at the front, lamps at the back, rather than electric lights. So you could use that. Let's have a look. Train Sporting Southeast. Jenny, can I ask this TV show James May is presenting, what channel is it on? Now, I'm told by the production company that it's on BBC 4. So I think you'll find that the behind-the-scenes show about Hornby will be shown on BBC 4. That, as I understand it, is who the programme's been made for. But I can't talk too much about it, whilst I do know a little bit about it because I've worked with the production company and knew it was going on. I've not been involved at all in it. I'm not a part of the development team or anything like that for that, but I just, you know, it was done by the same... Oh, excuse me, I got a hair in my mouth. It was done by Plum Productions, so I was aware it was going on. Ned's Trains, hello to you. Andrew Keeley, yes, you speed match them using the DCC. Yes, you can do that. And that's certainly another bonus for double heading. You know, you could theoretically double head a Peckett with Tornado, and you could speed match them. Digger Evans, what do you think of the Train Tech sound modules? The sound modules that kind of stand alone. You can have them, say, in a signal box doing ambient noises. It's an interesting idea, and it's not something that I've played with. In my opinion, you'd probably get as good a result just by getting some cheap speakers, a cheap amp, and a computer, which you can use for so much more than just, you can surf the internet on it, you can do live streaming on it, you can do word processing on it, you can watch YouTube on it, but you can also use that computer in your train room to play out ambient sound files through an amp and speakers underneath the baseboards and get much the same effect with a lot more flexibility. So not something that I would personally go for, but for some people, yeah, I think they like the idea. It's kind of a bit like the Hornby TTS Sound goods van. It's that kind of an idea, but in a building and for more ambient noises. I've heard a lot of good things said about those. They are a TTS chip inside the wagon, and you pay for the entire wagon, you pay the same amount as you pay for just a TTS chip. So they're remarkably good value. For me, I tend to those kind of noises. I think I could probably play them off a computer, and it's what I'll probably try doing up in the loft. Let's have a look. Christopher Music. Hi Jenny, what is your opinion of DCC smoke generators? Will you be trying them? I've never been a big fan of smoke generators, it has to be said. Although I've seen some very good ones. But I think, it's like you get what you pays for in a lot of things. I've seen them work very well in O gauge and gauge 1, where they worked incredibly well. Particularly, I remember seeing at an exhibition a Class 37 in O gauge with full sound and smoke units producing clag. And it didn't really look like clag. It has to be said, what comes out of them looks more like steam. It's a bit like, when people vape on these nicotine vape things. It's rather like the water vapour that people breathe out from that is how these things look. I think in 00 you're going to struggle to find the space for them. It's already a struggle to get the space for the speakers in a lot of these locomotives. So to find space for a smoke generator unit is going to really be a struggle. In terms of other problems, I have heard of them overheat and actually distort the model that they're attached to. So I personally wouldn't go for them, it has to be said. Yeah, DH7 Kelly, smoke doesn't scale well enough for 4mm and below. Totally agree with you. Some things don't scale. Smoke, water vapour, steam, water itself doesn't scale very well. So I'd say 00, forget smoke generators, unless you're going to fit them in a building. So say if you've got a smokestack, like a model factory, you could theoretically fit a smoke unit to puff smoke up the smokestack. But let's have a look. Wolfie Wolf, the old smoke gens use oil. They could do with using the same liquid as the vapes. Definitely, yeah. There's also the fire risk thing. If it's vaporizing oil, that's going to be flammable, and when you vaporize any flammable liquid, then it's not really a good idea. And also, you're going to be breathing that in. So yeah, the vape things would probably be a much better thing. DH7 Kelly, they can melt chimneys if not careful. Yeah, definitely. It's what I was saying. They can, especially with plastic models, the heat generated can cause distortion. DH7 Kelly, not sure the vapor devices are small enough. It depends actually. I've had a look at those cigarette vaping things, and the actual coil that produces the heat, and the mechanism can be quite small. The space is taken up actually by the actual reservoir for the liquid. So if you were to have a smaller reservoir. You could theoretically do it, but again, those coils can get very, very hot. They're not designed to be used all the time because, I've never seen anybody sit there sort of puffing away like their life depended on a vaping thing. And I don't think it would stand up to that kind of hardcore use. I have seen some interesting effects, like, for example, waterfalls with... I was trying to get comfy. I've got a bad back and bad knees. I have seen waterfalls done with a sort of a mist effect. Is it like they ionize the water or something, and you get like this... It's steam, but it's cold steam. It's very peculiar. I've seen these. If you go into like an ethnic-y type shop, where they sell incense burners and hippie type stuff. I've seen them in there, and you'll get this sort of little Zen fountain type effect that can produce a mist. And I've often wondered whether the units in those would actually be an interesting thing to play about with if you built a waterfall, say, into your model. They do look potentially quite good. Transporting Southeast, off to work soon. I'm steam mainline technician as well with steam locomotives and good pay. I say, if you make your job your hobby, you're onto a good thing. If you're not in London, are you? You're not going to I forget which locomotive it is. You may well know a good friend of mine, Simon A.C. Martin, because he's just sent me pictures of he says London's only working steam locomotive, and I'm wondering if you're going to work basically the same place that he works. Wolfie Wolf, is that the waterfall type of mist? Yeah, they're like these. They're almost like a little thing that you'd put on, say, a shelf as a display piece, a little sort of Zen fountain type thing, and it produces this mist as if the waterfall's producing spray. And I've often wondered about the units that are in those. You can probably buy them through eBay direct from China quite cheaply. And there's something that I wouldn't mind having a play about with. So look. Mr. Dreaded 88. Hi to you. Good to have you along. Wolfie Wolf. It's a piezo... oh, God. My pronunciation of weird ones. Piezo module that creates it. Yeah, if you can get those quite small, then they're actually, I think they've got immense potential for model railways, and certainly to bring this to shoehorn this back to DCC. It's probably not beyond possible to make them DCC controllable, so you could control it from... I mean, I think you probably only need something like one of the cheap Hornby 4-pin chips. You can get them discounted. Some of the box shifters are doing them for £12, which is pretty good. And you could actually use that to control fairly simple devices such as those via the DCC. It's certainly food for thought. Wolfie Wolf, I think the smallest I've found is the same size as a 10p coin. Yeah, definitely. I think the only thing that you're going to have to work out what to do with it is the reservoir with the water, making sure that it doesn't leak, because you really don't want a steam locomotive dumping water everywhere as it goes round. D827 Kelly, depends on how many amps they draw, as function outputs are quite limited in a lot of chips. What I'm thinking is actually on the Hornby 4-pin chip, you don't have any function outputs. All it does is purely control the speed of the motor. So what you would do is you'd use the motor outputs to drive the device. Let's have a look. 78 sound. I had a coal car that also made a steam sound. It was cool. People liked it very much so. Yeah, and that's why the Hornby TTS goods vans are actually a good idea, because whilst Hornby are selling them just with this TTS chip that has these sort of ambient shunting noises, flange squeal, things like that, you can always swap out the chip and put a steam loco chip in, And then effectively you could double head it with any locomotive and have sound for that locomotive being played from the wagon behind it. And this might be something to consider if you're on a budget and you don't want to actually have the cost of DCC sound fitting a huge fleet of locomotives that will really rack up quite a cost. Consider DCC sound fitting a wagon or a coach, and then your locomotives just put an ordinary run-of-the-mill DCC chip in, get a nice cheap 12 quid jobby, and then you just consist it with the wagon in the train or the coach in the train, and there it goes with the sound. So it's certainly, I think DCC really is, in many ways, limited only by your imagination and ingenuity. And that's another area which I do really like about DCC. It adds this whole new dimension to railway modelling beyond the actual making of the model itself. And I think that we've talked in live streams previously about attracting the new generation into the hobby. And what you've got to remember is that model railways are competing with video games. So you need that extra, like the unique selling point, the extra things to interest people. And I think DCC has that potential. It's not just about building a model and having your trains run through that landscape. There's now so much more that you can do with those trains within that landscape, but not just the trains. Controlling accessories, you can play signalman, you can play it being in a big power box somewhere, setting your routes, dispatching the trains, all that kind of stuff. It adds this new dimension, and I think that is what stands the best chance of bringing the new generation into the hobby. Hi there, Angus's Trains, good to have you back, and we're still talking about the DCC here. D827 Kelly, computer control is one possibility. Yeah, definitely. And I've seen the modules for doing it. You need software on the computer, and then you have a sort of an interface thing that I think they normally do it through Ethernet. So you plug it into your network, and it has an IP address, and the software on the computer interfaces. So you on the computer itself, you can then control everything. And I think that has a lot of potential to bring costs down, because you could then use your existing computer. You just have a piece of software that controls everything, that can be upgraded, just download and upgrade, bing bang bosh, and away you go. So I think that the days of the dedicated handsets and DCC control units are possibly numbered. It may be something that what we're going to see is that things do move over to a more computer-based thing. Wolfie Wolf, I've seen Arduino boards and Raspberry Pi boards linked into DCC for lighting, sound and other moving effects. Yeah, there's a whole lot of potential here. John Edwards, hi Jenny, guten Abend from Germany, great chat again. What? Dankeschön, Dankeschön bitte sehr, und willkommen von Deutschland. Meine Deutsch ist ein bisschen schlecht. Ich habe nur ein bisschen gelernt, wenn ich in Schule waren. I don't know. My German's very rusty. I haven't actually spoken to a native German speaker in about 25 years. So I know all the swear words still, but isn't that the first thing that anybody learns? When they learn a foreign language, you very quickly learn all the swear words. So it's like Russian. I can swear in Russian, but I don't know much more than just swearing. So I can gesticulate and shout "Zucca" out of the car window whenever somebody slides into me. Let's have a look. Wolfie Wolf, does anyone know if there is other software that will run on the Hornby E-Link? I don't, but maybe somebody who's watching this might have the information and post it in the comments. Aha! Boom! There we go. Oscar Wilder, JMRI will work with E-Link. Vids on YouTube. Yeah, if you're stuck with anything, YouTube usually has a video to cover you. It's how I rebuilt a classic Volvo 850. I have a Haynes manual for it, but a Haynes manual is atrocious to follow if you're not if you weren't natively a car person to start with. So I found a lot of information on YouTube. John Edwards, good try, you did well. Dankeschön. Wolfie Wolf, thanking Oscar. Yeah, definitely, brilliant. D827 Kelly, cheap too, £30 for the pie, £25 for the module, and then power. Yeah, I think that is the way ahead. I can see that these sort of dedicated Gauge Master type DCC units are probably going to be a thing of the past at some point. Because things are going to just move over to computer control. It's the logical step. And in some respects, you do wonder why they didn't do it the software approach in the first place. 78 Sound. Do you still have the 850? Certainly do. Fully rebuilt. And it will be attending the Volvo 600 event on the 31st of March at Bruntisthorpe Proving Ground, where myself and probably anywhere up to about 1,500 other Volvo drivers will attempt to break the world record for the largest number of Volvos in a moving parade. It's currently set at, I think it's 500, so they're looking to absolutely smash that. And I always think I lead a boring life, but here I am. I've had one go at breaking a Guinness World Record. We didn't manage it because there was strict rules and the track was not down in its entirety for the duration of the train travelling on it. So we didn't get that record. But then there's also this other one with Silver Lady, the spiritual follow-up Series 2 type thing, if they film it. I'm not sure whether they will. To Biggest Little Railway, and that is a serious attempt at a Guinness World Record. Yeah, D827 Kelly. Haynes manuals famous for missing out steps. Oh, don't they just? I have found in just in the manual for the 850 alone, the Haynes manual, I have found probably about a dozen errors or omissions. They're a handy kind of little loose, rough guide for if you get really stuck. But in all honesty with you, the Haynes manuals are atrociously written. I mean, for God's sake, people, a picture says 1,000 words. A few more pictures in those books would have not gone amiss. Let's have a look. Creeping Jane, Wolfie Wolf, I've searched for E-Link and PC control, no joy so far. 78 Sound, I have an S70 GLT 1999. Yeah, I love Volvos, but apparently after about 2002, 2003, I think when they moved over to the Mark III V70 is about the point where apparently they're not really quite so reliable. Wolfie Wolf, the XC90 is fixed. Oh, brilliant. So what was the issue with it in the end? Did you, I presume you got to the bottom of the issue. D827 Kelly, I miss having a classic car. I thought you had a Vauxhall Viva. Yeah, I used to have a 1964 and 1974 Vauxhall Viva. Boom, called it, I remembered. The Haynes manuals were only useful for wiring diagrams, assuming they weren't incorrect. Yeah, the manual for the 850 is a little bit better than that. And again, like you say, from an electrical point of view, electrical faults, I can't fault the Haynes manual. It's very useful. It's got a full list of all the fault codes, and I use it as a reference guide for that. And there's a few other things. Like if you want to just, you want to know where the oil filter is, it'll tell you that. Wolfie Wolf, the dying at 65 miles per hour was due to the engine mounts having a vacuum leak. Ah, yes, I think that was one of my suggestions, wasn't it? The vacuum leak. And it's amazing how such a small amount of vacuum leak can cause such a huge problem. It can be literally a pinprick. Because I had a pinprick split in one of the fuel injector O-rings on my Volvo, and it caused no end of grief with the check engine light constantly coming on and giving this vague, nebulous 231 long-term fuel mix, too rich or too lean in part load stage, was what officially it said. But yeah, definitely vacuum leaks, and I think any mechanic as well that you asked would say that vacuum leaks are one of the worst things possible, because tracking them down can be a painful nightmare. But yeah, so Kelly, get back to the Vauxhall Viva. When did you sell that? I'm just curious why you got rid of it, because I'm sure you had that comparatively recently, or maybe I'm just getting confused. Creeping Jane, a quick search on the net shows E-Link with JMRI, so it's brilliant. I'm glad that it is. So this is what I like about the live chat. Not only do I get to interact in a live manner, but people can share ideas. We've got a good little community going here. This is grand, this. But right, well, we're talking DCC. I think it's a fallacy that you only need 2 wires to a layout to convert it to DCC. Load of rubbish. You still need an awful lot of wires, not least because you've got to get the feed to various places. You've got to make sure you've got a good feed to all the track, and you've still got to wire up all your point motors. Let's have a look. Train Sporting Southeast. My dad has DCC. He swears by it, but he makes me wire it all. Excuse me. And on weekend, he and I are going on traction engine full size for steam rally. Oh, it's always good fun. I always love driving steam traction engines. My dad builds 1/3 size one, so 4-inch scale. So essentially, for every 4-inch, what is it? It's about 4 inches to the foot. So for every foot on the real thing, my dad's model is 4 inches. So effectively 1/3 scale, and they're great fun to drive. But I have driven full-sized Aveling and Porter steamroller. I've driven a few times actually. We knew the guy who owned it at the time, and they are actually good fun to drive. They can be a bit nerve-wracking the first time you go out, and also if you're on a roller, if you end up driving a road roller, as I did at Aveling and Porter, and went on a road run, cat's eyes, the old-fashioned cast iron cat's eyes with the plastic insert that reflects, are the bane of your life. Because can you imagine rattling over those at about sort of like 7-8 miles an hour in something that has no suspension whatsoever and solid cast iron rolls? So it jolts the teeth out of the back of your head. D827 Kelly, I didn't own the Vivas, sadly. When I moved away from Nuneaton, I lost use of them. Ah, right. They've long since moved on or been scrapped. Oh, right. The 64 Vivas certainly was due to horizontal fence panels. Horizontal fence panels? I'm not sure I follow you on that. D87 Kelly, not had a classic car since 2008. Actually, see, classic cars, you've got to pick them carefully, because certain classic cars can be a mollycoddled nightmare. And certainly rust can be your enemy. I'm quite lucky with the Volvo. It did have a little bit of a rust issue in 3 places. Front wings, notorious for it. And rear quarter panel as well, which not notorious for, but it had accident damage that it didn't know about from its original owner, and they'd done a really good repair, but hadn't properly treated the knackered metal underneath the body filler, so it was quietly and deceitfully rusting under there. Wolfie Wolf, I would have thought cat's eyes would have disintegrated. No, they are quite hardy, actually. They don't disintegrate. Your teeth and fillings disintegrate long before they would. Philip Page, does your dad go to Heskin Steam Rally? No. No, not one I've ever been to. See, Train Sporting Southeast, and he and I own traction layout, 2 tons of coal in bunker and 5,000 gallons in tanks, and a trailer carries 5 tons of coal and 10,000 gallons of water. That is quite a lot. And that weight soon mounts up. That's something that my dad and I found. when you'd load the traction engine up at the end of a rally, you had to remember to dump all the water from the boiler and from the tender, because there was a lot of weight to be hauling around otherwise. And of course, there's no baffles in there either. So if you have a boiler and a tender both half full of water, when you brake hard, it sloshes backwards and forwards, and you've got this huge weight of water oscillating backwards and forwards, and you can feel it. The van sort of starts shunting like this. So you always got to remember to blow all that out. Let's have a look. Philip Page, quite a few quarter-sized traction engines go there. Yeah, the miniatures, they're a lot more popular now. A lot of people build them. You can get effectively kits. I say kits. You can build as much or as little yourself as you want. You can buy the plans and fabricate everything from scratch, or you can buy the plans and rough castings, machine them all yourselves, do a lot of fabrication. That's what my dad does. He's at the, he'll get rough castings for various bits, but he'll fabricate an awful lot. Boiler you get made, and the firebox, because you have to be a coded welder to do those. So unless you are a coded welder, you cannot actually do that legally. What was I talking about? Sorry, my brain's just gone blank. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. It's a much bigger hobby. They're a lot easier to deal with. I mean, my dad's garret, 4 people could, at a pinch, lift it entirely off the ground. If each person grabs a wheel, you could probably just about lift it off the ground. But certainly you can manhandle it around quite easily. D827 Kelly, a lorry lost its load. The owner of the 64 Viva, after my ex sold it, was only alive after, as it had no seatbelts. The panel sliced. The bloody hell. That's the other thing about classic cars is, depending on how old they are. I mean, my Volvo 850 is probably all, you don't want to have a head-on collision, but you'd probably be all right with that. I mean, it's got airbags, side impact protection system, crumple zones, things like that. So you probably stand a good chance of walking away quite easily from that car. But when you get back to a car from the 1960s, the crumple zone was generally your face. So not a good car to have a nasty accident in. Matthew Dunmo, hey Jenny, do you know where I can get an old locomotive restored to fully working order? Thanks. If you take it to most model shops, if they don't do repairs themselves, then they will know somebody. Generally speaking, they'll have a customer who does it on the side for people. There are some people out there who do specialise in locomotive repairs. I know that for Hornby 00, Dennis Williams, I think he lives in Northwich. He doesn't have a shop or anything. You can usually find an advert somewhere. I think he's got a website. But he will refurbish Hornby 00 locomotives. He's really good. Let's have a look. D827 Kelly, that's why tanks have baffles inside to prevent liquid oscillation. Yeah, but you can't have baffles in a boiler or a tender realistically. It's just not really practical. Let's just have a look. Train Sporting Southeast, top speed 7 miles per hour, and after show 5 hours to home and holding up traffic. That was great fun. Actually, yeah, in the height of summer, doing a road run in a traction engine is probably quite therapeutic, because you don't have the hassle of trying to overtake anything. Everything else has to have the hassle of overtaking you. But they're very high maintenance, a lot of wear and tear because they weigh a lot, and the bearings are just generally phosphor bronze sleeves. So you need some pretty hefty kit to be able to do the maintenance on those sort of things. And that's why the miniatures, the 4-inch scale that my dad builds to, he can just about manage them with his Colchester student lathe and the Tom Senior milling machine. He can do repairs himself. Let's have a look. Wolfie Wolf, to be back in an old machine shop again. I miss break times and doing the odd foreigner. Yeah, one of my dad's friends worked in an engineering firm, and he actually built 6-inch gauge garrets, so it's like half scale. He built them on his lunch hour on the work equipment, and did a really good engineer. The company didn't mind too much, to be honest, because it was a perk of the job which ensured that they retained a very good engineer. Dogger Bend Railway, I would love a live steam loco. You and me both. I'd love one for the Garden Railway. If not O gauge, then I'm thinking SM32, but I've been warned that SM32 locomotives might have an issue running on an O gauge track, not because of the gauge, but because their flanges might be too deep. D827 Kelly, solid build rather than crumple zones. The car had no seat belts, clear indicators, and the seats had no locking mechanism for the tip-up function. Also had cross-ply tyres, great fun on M1. And yeah, I can imagine. The trouble with cross-ply tyres is that they can overheat to the point where you get massive blowouts. It was one of the big issues when they ironically built the M1, was that all of a sudden cars, people could floor their cars and like just pedal to the metal. And they had a lot of problems with people blowing engines because they were over-stressing them, and also having massive tyre blowouts because with the cross plies, they would the way that the plies were in there, they would rub and rub and rub, and the friction generated would get so hot that it would explode the tyre. Let's have a look. Train Sporting Southeast, you will hate me for this, Jenny. Me and my dad own Andrew Barclay tank, and the traction engine is in workshop at home with Andrew Barclay tank with full-size locomotives. Well, I hate you for that. I know people who've got much the same. In fact, I'm wondering actually. You're not in just near Pontefract in South Yorkshire, are you? Because if you are, then I've been to somebody's workshop where they have pretty much what you described. They had a railway locomotive in a barn that they were working on, and they had a traction engine that they took to rallies, and they were also they were restoring an old British Rail standard 8-ton horse box from a grounded van body, and they were fabricating up a new chassis for it. No, yeah, so it's not you then, but in Wales. But yeah, Andrew Barclay, you didn't get the one that was at the Tannock Valley Railway, did you? It was an Andrew Barclay shunter. I was there a few days before it was loaded up on a low loader and headed off somewhere for its new home. But certainly the Andrew Barclay shunters are a nice little thing. 78 Sound, 10 years expiration date on the airbags. Just saying. I had wondered about that. So what does that mean? Does that mean they could just go off on their own, or does that mean that they won't go off? What actually happens with an old airbag? I mean, am I basically on a ticking time bomb of getting punched in the face by an errant airbag every time I go over a speed bump in my Volvo? Let's have a look. Dogger Bend Railway. There's a video of me 6-month-old on a quarter an inch railway. There's cine film of me actually on various ride-on steam railways, and also on the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway a long time ago. You're talking about very early 1980s on cine film. Wolfie Wolf, the propellant has an expiry date. D87 Kelly, explosives have a life expiry, part of MOT to test them now, I believe. What do they do? Like smack the front of your car with a hammer and see if your airbag goes off? Oh, it works. Oh, you need a new one now. I believe my car is exempt because of its age, and this is the thing, you get grandfather rights. It's one of the other things that's really good about a classic car, is certain things in the test don't apply to you. So for example, my Volvo 850 from 1996 is exempt from having working reversing lights, bizarrely enough. It's one of those things. It does not require having working reversing lights, and the fact that it was fitted with reversing lights, it spent 15 years with them not working because of a broken switch in the gearbox, and it never failed an MOT for it. I have actually repaired that now. What else? I believe that for the ABS, all that it needs is for there not to be an ABS warning light on the dashboard. The ABS itself is not tested. It just merely has to be not reporting a fault on your dashboard. DH7 Kelly, suspect the test is to do with the electronics. Yeah, it will be. It'll be, you know, like computer says it's okay type thing. And I can imagine that being perfectly possible. Plug in, the computer says, gives you a status of everything. The Volvo won't let you do that. It's too old for that. Wolfie Wolf, talking of Grandad rights, I love the fact that you can drive a 30-year-old double-decker bus on a car licence, as long as you don't carry more than 8 passengers. Yeah, I believe that if you've got a HGV licence, you can drive any bus or coach as long as there's not more than 8 passengers on it. So what that means is that, for example, a lot of the people you see trade plating London buses down from the Dennis Works up in Camelon down to London, they're actually HGV drivers who are doing that. They're not bus or coach drivers. They're HGV drivers working on trade plates because you're allowed to do that. D827 Kelly, if you fit something that is exempt, it is supposed to be the case it voids the exemption. Not entirely true, because the reversing lights, like I said, 15 years the reversing lights didn't work on the Volvo, and there's a cut-off date, and cars that were built before that cut-off date are not required to have working reversing lights. Even if they're fitted with reversing lights, they don't actually have to work. D87 Kelly, if the 64 Viva had been fitted with reinforced plates for seatbelts, it would have required them. Yeah, I think there's certain things like seatbelts, safety equipment, by and large, has to conform to a certain standard, even if it's a retrofit. The airbags, I'm not really sure how they test it. The Volvo has no means of communicating electronically with the airbags. There's no computer module that controls them. It's done off a sensor somewhere. I think, well, certainly the passenger and driver's side airbags, you know, the one in the steering wheel and the one in the dashboard. As far as I'm aware, there's an impact sensor somewhere behind the front bumper is how they work, and it's why, if you, I'm not advocating you do this, but if you turn so this is the important thing, it won't work if the ignition's off, but if you turn the ignition on your car to the on position and then walk around the front with a big hammer and smack the bumper as hard as you can, it's my understanding that you will set the airbags off. So don't do that. Although I'm sure there's YouTube videos of Wallies doing that to scrap cars. Train Sporting Southeast. My dad was army in Iraq. He found improvised explosive devices with airbag explosives in it. Yeah, I can well imagine that. And airbags, they have a hell of a punch when they go off. I've seen them launch people into the air. You know, people being stupid with them, you know, sit on an airbag and set it off. There's a lot of power to them, so I can well believe that. And you know, they're easy to set off using a 12-volt car battery from afar. So I can well believe that they'd be very easy to make IEDs. D827 Kelly, there are about 10 to 15 airbags in the Mondeo. Yeah, I can well believe it, between steering column airbag, passenger side airbag, curtain airbags, the ones that come down and protect you, the side of you, side impact protection airbags, seat airbags. I can well believe that, you know, when you add it all up, the Volvo 850 has, I believe, got 6 airbags, is my understanding. So, you know, on a car from 1996. It has 6 airbags, and that was probably considered quite a lot back then. Wolfie Wolf, when I worked for JLR, all seatbelts were kept in a big cage just in case of fire. Interesting. Yeah, see, seatbelts are another thing as well. If you've been involved in an accident and the seatbelt is tensioned, and that's probably another area where you get an airbag. Well, an airbag. It's actually the explosive charge, not the airbag itself, but the seatbelt tensioners on modern cars have an explosive charge, and the idea is that it tensions the seatbelt in that instant of the impact to hold you in place. And I've heard of some instances where people actually have to cut the seatbelt to get out. It's probably not a thing you really want if there's a fire, but although say you can just like clunk clip and chuck it off. But yeah, if a seatbelt's subject to a crash situation, then they're subject to the force. They have to be replaced. Yeah, pre-tensioner explosives in them. That's what I was trying to say, Wolfie Wolf. Train spotted in South East. He was a dog handler, and his dog found it. Thankfully, it was rigged. People, but not dogs. It was very fine. Yeah, it's you know, a nasty area, things like that. Hats off to the people who go out to war zones and do those sort of jobs. It's a horrible job. Somebody's got to do it. So kudos to the people who put their lives on the line for the safety of the rest of us. And always got a lot of time for the armed forces. People there, they do a great job. And often in some pretty atrocious circumstances, out in a war zone. And they do it with the minimum of fuss and keep us all safe. So, hats off to your dad. D827 Kelly, dashboard airbags do so much damage if they go off. It is very expensive to fix. Yeah, because it basically destroys your dashboard for a start. They destroy your dashboard. And they will also smash your windscreen. So you quite often see in scrapyards a car that's had been in an accident. There'll be this big splinter, smashed bit in the windscreen on the passenger side, and that's not where somebody's face has gone smack on the windscreen. It's simply where the airbag has gone off in the dashboard, and it smacks the windscreen as it deploys. So, windscreens are not cheap. You're talking hundreds of pounds for a windscreen. Got to get it fitted. But the dashboard, quite apart from being able to strip it out of the car and then retrofit a new one in, it's quite an unusual piece. By and large, you're looking at the car would be written off. Train spotting South East. Myself as an ex-armed forces Royal Logistics Corps with railways mostly around Russia and Germany area. That was fun talking to all German soldiers. Royal Logistics Corps. That's what Dick Strawbridge was in the Royal Logistics Corps, I believe. Speaks very fondly of his time in the army. But getting to play trains as well, that would be an added bonus. It's just a shame that places like Longmoor and the Walmart instructional railway had shut in the 60s, because that would have been a nice cushy little assignment. Join the army, get to play with real trains on somebody else's dime. I could spring for that. Anyway, DCC. I think we've covered a lot of what I wanted to cover in brief. I think that DCC is definitely the future. For me, it's the sound that's made it happen. And I predict, this is Jenny's top prediction, that the days of the Gauge Master dedicated controllers for DCC are numbered. I think it will all go software driven via computer software, and you'll just have an interface box. It's a logical thing to do. It's more flexible to do. So yeah. 78 sound, guys. Public service reminder: please like this video in case you forgot. Boom! Thank you, 78 sound. Brilliant. Always like my videos because I like it when you like it. And, it helps the stats. It helps these videos get noticed by more people on YouTube, and that's what we want. We want to build this community. Don't forget, before I forget, next week on Monday, 7 o'clock GMT, we'll be back. And in the meantime, we've got an update video in the Loft on Friday, and there's a lot of progress being going on. So I think you'll be very impressed about all the things that has been going on up there. And also on Wednesday, we'll have, I think it'll be a classic box opening and review. I'll look at a slightly older Locomotive and give that the old once-over. So I'm actually quite tempted to review the Hornby ex-Dapol Lancashire and Yorkshire Pug, because I really do like that. Oh, well, I was saying that, actually, no, I have done a box opening and review on one of those. Maybe I'll pick a different look. I don't know. I'll see what I can find, but it'll be something coming up on Wednesday. But yeah, looking back there, yeah, Wolfie Wolf, there have been several photos of gems put on the steering wheel airbags, essentially creating a claymore. Yeah, don't stick anything to your steering wheel for that reason. So all these people who like to bling their cars up, they're going to get punched in the face with it. And the speed that an airbag deploys, you don't want any shrapnel there. You don't need shrapnel on your airbag. It's the last thing you want. I mean, to be honest with you, it's going to do enough damage on its own. You don't want shrapnel in there to embed in your face. Transporting Southeast, the interesting thing is it's top secret past the joys working on railways. Philip Page, Jenny's Monday Club. Yeah, definitely, yeah, we'll call it that. Yeah, the Jenny Monday Club, Shed Chat Live. And also, don't forget, I'm looking around now, actually, to see whether... No, I don't have any of my books in here. Don't forget, as well, you can still pick up my books. There's still 5 of my books definitely still in print. I must check that, actually. Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star. And then also Where Once the Faithful Ran, Where Once the Faithful Roamed, Where Once the Faithful Rise. Don't forget you can buy those books, and buying those books helps support me. E-books are available, certainly of the first 2. And the Stars books. Oh, actually, yeah, there are more than 5 books in print, because there's also the Complete Wacky Zany Adventures of the Life of Knobty Mouse, Volume 1. And also books 1 and books 2 of All Over the House, which is the comic collection that Zoe and I have been doing, the webcomic. Oh, where were we? Oh, yes, and you can also find me on Patreon. I do need to send out the Patreon rewards as well. Actually, Zoe does. She's supposed to be doing that. So a big, big sorry to anybody who's waiting on a Patreon reward and wondering what's happened to it. They are all planned out, ready to produce and get in the post, and Zoe keeps forgetting, so I will remind her on that. So really, really sorry to people who may be waiting for those. Wolfie Wolf, the other one is ladies with their feet on the passenger side of the dashboard. If the airbag goes off, it puts your knees into your eye sockets. Yeah, rip your blooming legs off as well, it has to be said. Yeah, I was past the other day. Some woman, I don't know why it's a women thing, but she had her legs on the dashboard in high heels, and as they drove past, that was my thoughts exactly. It's like you prang into something and the airbag goes off, it'll rip your leg in half. Eric Veen, or Veen, not sure on the pronunciation, sorry if I'm mangling that. I like your YouTube, thank you very much. Greetings from Holland, nice work. Good evening to you too, and it's really good to have you along. But yeah, until next time, I'm starting to go a bit hoarse actually. I've been doing all this talking. It's been great to have you along. Don't forget to like this video and also subscribe too, and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. And until next Monday's Jenny's, what do we call it? Jenny's Monday Club. I'm going to have to write that down somewhere. Until next Jenny's Monday Club, you take really, really good care of yourself. And it's been an honour to have you along for the ride. It's been great to talk to you all. And until next time, spread the word. Let everybody else know that this is here, that we're live on Mondays, but also you can catch up at any time watching the video. Let's have a look. Anyway, yeah, bye Mr. Dreaded 88. D87 Kelly, Darwin Award. Yeah, very much so, for the airbag thing. I don't know how we got onto the airbag thing, but yeah, it was actually quite interesting. Transporting Southeast, bye, off to work. Anyway, you have yourself a good night there at work. Your work actually sounds really interesting. It doesn't sound like work. It sounds like the sort of thing you do for a hobby. The fact you get paid for it, that's grand. 78 Sound, have a great week. You too, Philip Page, good night to you too. Good night to all of you. You take really, really good care of yourself, and I'll be seeing you next time. Take care. Bye for now.